Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and as I mentioned that I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Mr. Mostafa Abbas, the international relations expert. Mr. Mostafa, of course, we have seen the efforts of Egypt over the past 2 years to be reaching this point, the ceasefire that we are having nowadays according to the proposal of the US President Donald Trump, and we have seen the peace summit held in Sharm el-Sheikh under the chairmanship of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the US President Donald Trump. And I would speak about the balance that we have had over the past at least 2 years, the balance between the national interests of Egypt in terms of the national security and to be defending the Palestinian cause as well on the diplomatic and the humanitarian level. How did you see this balance?
I see that it has been in the correct position, because before that it was an imbalance. It was, I mean, when you hear about efforts being exerted to tackle the problem in Gaza, and some countries are mentioned before Egypt, this is not right. This is not putting things in true perspective. Egypt is more concerned than anybody else with Gaza. Gaza has been a part of Egypt, politically, socially, and otherwise. So now things have fallen into perspective. Egypt is playing a leading role in the efforts to reconstruct Gaza, to bring peace to Gaza. This is only proper. Otherwise, it's a state of imbalance. So I believe that we have started to do the right thing, and I would just turn around the question a little bit.
Yes.
Gaza is one of the interests of Egypt, one of the strategic interests of Egypt. So Gaza also is a part of the security of Egypt, socially, economically, and politically. So it was only proper, and it is only proper, that Egypt takes a prime role in defending Gaza, in reconstructing Gaza, in looking after the interests and the welfare of the people of Gaza.
And this led to the statements and to the stance of Egypt and the Egyptian president not to be displacing the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip into Egypt or into Jordan or to anywhere else?
That shows the far-sightedness of the Egyptian diplomacy. As I always said, the Egyptian diplomacy is a school. It's one of the schools of diplomacy in the world. From my own experience, I know that we have very good diplomats who know exactly what they are doing. And they have far-sightedness. They look ahead. They don't look under their feet. They look ahead. And with regard to Gaza, we have been exposed to a lot of pressure, politically, economically, and otherwise. We were blamed several hundred times for lack of role in Gaza, but it was impossible to do something. So it's only wise. When you can do something, you go ahead and do it. If you cannot do something, stay where you are, watch, and wait for the opportunity to do the right thing. And I think we have done exactly this. Egyptian diplomacy waited and waited. We have been very patient. And when we took a step forward, we took a step in the right direction. And I hope, very much hope, that our efforts will produce results.
And speaking of pressure, because this pressure has been mounting for the past 2 years, ever since the October 7th incidents that took place in 2023. One part of the pressure was coming from the United States, the proposal of displacing the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, and the Gaza Strip to be under the authority of the United States President Donald Trump, and to be turning it into a Riviera, as he once said. The displacing of Palestinians, or the relocation of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip into Egypt and into Jordan, the proposal was refused by both President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Jordanian King Abdullah II. How do you see the bilateral relations between Egypt and the United States at the beginning of the events in 2023 all the way until last week when the peace summit took place for the ending of the war of the aggression against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip in Egypt in the presence of the US President Donald Trump under the chairmanship of the Egyptian President?
Well, October 7th, people blame everything now on October 7th.
Yes.
That is not true, because the situation in Palestine was extremely bad. And it's as good or as bad as it is now, whether there is an October 7 or no October 7. But there is one line or one white thread in this dark horizon. With the advent or with the coming of Donald Trump to the political scene, it has become clear to everybody that the United States is not a mediator. The United States is, unfortunately, on the side of Israel, regardless. So you cannot...
Despite the proposal, despite the plan?
You cannot. I mean, if you look at the plan was drafted by the Americans. It was given first to the Israelis, which is, diplomatically speaking, absolutely impossible. I mean, you cannot give the plan to an adversary to revise and then offer the plan to the different parties. You cannot do that. I mean, this is illogical. So now it has become clear that the United States is or has been and unfortunately will continue to be on the side of Israel, to the point that some people say our problem is not with Israel because Israel is not really that great power. Our problem is with the United States. But you cannot just go ahead and say that the United States is an enemy. Well, they support the enemy and they are in favor of the enemy. And unfortunately, the 20-point or the 21-point plan by Donald Trump is very difficult to understand. I am an expert when it comes to reading an agreement or something of the sort. It's very fuzzy, especially in this starting with the second phase. The first phase is clear-cut, which is the part that has to be played by the Palestinians or by the Gazans. Release the hostages, give back to those hostages, blah, 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 blah.
For the first few months, maybe 3 to 6 months.
I don't know. You don't know anything.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the tip of the iceberg is the only part that we see. There is a lot that is hidden. There is a lot that depends on deductions only. I mean, normally, when there is an agreement being implemented, you see, well, there is a problem here, but this is fine here, this is fine there. But with this plan, nobody, and I have met quite a few people from different angles, nobody can tell exactly what is going to happen starting the second phase, whether this starts in 2 months or 3 months.
So you can't see anything about the future of Hamas, for example?
Well, the future of Hamas is not bad, as far as I can see. And as we always say, Donald Trump is a real estate broker. He comes and tells you, well, this house is worth $1 million. Come on, this house is worth $10 million. How can you say $1 million? Well, we negotiate. So we went from a Riviera now to reconstruction. There is a huge sea of difference between reconstruction and having the place, owning the place, and having a Riviera.
Yes.
And who is going to govern Gaza? It's unclear. Once it's the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Tony Blair, who is not trustworthy from my own point of view and from the point of view of a lot of people.
Especially after the war in Iraq.
After many things. We do not have to go into details about this. And now the situation is unclear. But we go back to the point that you raised at the beginning. Egypt is solely in the position of doing something useful, practical, and and has a lot of utility in the Gaza Strip.
On the other hand, after refusing the proposal of relocating the Palestinians, displacing the Palestinians, now, as you mentioned, we are talking about the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. It will be having several phases. It will be costing at least between 57 and 70 billion American dollars. How do you see the role of Egypt in at least hosting the conference that will be implementing the plan for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip for the benefit of the Palestinians?
Well, Egypt, is, as I said at the beginning, plays a role that nobody else can play.
Yes.
We act as a host for the others who are outside the frame, in a sense, because we are inside the frame. So we facilitate the implementation of the agreement, if there is an agreement. And let us ask another question. The reconstruction of Gaza is going to cost 70 billion or 100 billion. What is the use of this if this is done and then it is destroyed? Done and it is destroyed. We have to reach first an agreement, a binding agreement between the parties with guarantees from the big powers, of course notably the United States, but you have to involve the other powers like China, the Russian Federation, and this is actually the position of Egypt. Egypt wants to get something formal from the Security Council of the United Nations. This is only proper. Again, this is a sign of the far-sightedness that I mentioned before. We have to do this properly, and I think we are doing very well in Egypt.
According to the plan, or according to the proposal of the US President, one of the points is to be disarming Hamas and to be governing Gaza according to a transitional international council headed by Donald Trump himself. This means that Hamas wouldn't be having any arms to be causing what happened in 2023 to be happening once again in the future, because you mentioned that if we reconstruct Gaza and it happens once again, according to a war between Hamas and Israel, so we'll be destroying the Gaza Strip once again, and we'll be looking for plans to reconstruct it once again. So disarming Hamas and governing Gaza, do you think that this would be ending the cycle itself?
If it is implemented, but it is not implementable. Because
so the plan would not be
no, it is not easy to implement. It does not lend itself to easy implementation. Disarming Hamas, this is like saying you have to tear down this wall, and then comes an expert, they tear down the wall, but they tell you if you tear down the wall, the whole building will collapse. If you remove Hamas, if you remove the arms from the hands of Hamas, who is going to control Gaza on the ground? So lawyers, or legally speaking, they say it is impossible to implement. It does not lend itself to implementation.
Even with the presence of the Palestinian Authority and President Mahmoud Abbas and the Prime Minister Mohammed Mostafa?
Unfortunately, no. And again, if you disarm Hamas, what are you going to do with the other factions? You have Hamas, you have Jihad, you have Al-Qassam, you have, name it.
The other armed factions within the Gaza Strip?
Within the Gaza Strip, you're talking only about Hamas. This is impractical. This indicates either a bad intention or a lack of awareness of the nature of the situation in Gaza.
Mr. Mostafa, you mentioned that we need cooperation, especially for Egypt. Egypt within the equation itself of assisting the Gazans to be defending the Palestinian cause. We are within the equation, not outside of it. So Egypt needs cooperation, maybe, as you mentioned, with Russia, with China. What about the international organizations, like the United Nations, for example? In the past month or so, we have seen the recognition of big countries like France, Portugal, Australia, the United Kingdom, Canada, of a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly. What is the role of the United Nations in this?
Well, we have first to recognize what is, or to realize, not recognize, to have to realize what is the nature of the United Nations. The United Nations is the collective action of its member states. The United Nations cannot be a party. This is a fallacy. When you say that the quadripartite conference, United States, Russia, United States, Palestine, Israel, and Egypt, for example, and then you add the United Nations as a party. United Nations cannot be a party. The United Nations is an expression of the collective will of member states.
Can they implement the deal, the agreement?
They can oversee the implementation.
Not enforce it.
No, even when it enforces with the cooperation of member states. They form a contingent or a peacekeeping contingent or peacekeeping force driven from member states with different levels, of course.
Yes.
But the United Nations itself is, again, a collective expression of the will of the member states. So you cannot give this role to the United Nations. You can give it the role to specific countries under the aegis of the United Nations. This is one thing that probably people do not realize.
Mr. Mostafa, you've mentioned the importance of the diplomacy of Egypt and the skill set of the Egyptian diplomats that we have here in the country. Do you think that the diplomats that we have here at our disposal could be ending the possibility of the recurrence of war, of aggression from the Israelis against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip?
Ending an aggression takes two parties or several parties. I think we have a clout with the Palestinian people. They trust the Egyptians. Despite everything, they trust the Egyptians.
Yes.
The Egyptians can play a role on the ground. But you cannot trust the Israelis. And even
with the bilateral ties between Egypt and Israel?
Egyptian diplomacy, very skillful as it is,
yes,
cannot deal with the prevarications and games of the Israelis, because the Israelis have strategy that runs contrary to all the efforts that are being implemented at the moment. I hope I'm mistaken, but unfortunately I'm not sanguine. I'm not optimistic. I am not optimistic at all. However, this does not prevent Egypt from doing its own role. Maybe the Egyptian diplomacy will surprise some people in the world, including myself.
We did surprise the world in 1973 and up till 1982 with the battle for Taba. And
correct, correct.
On the other hand, on the humanitarian level, because we have seen the efforts of Egypt to be sending and distributing the humanitarian aid from Egypt, the initiative called From Egypt to Gaza, Zed al-Izza. How do you see the importance of the Egyptian efforts for the past 2 years to be sending aid, the importance of this initiative and the availability of it to be continuing?
Well, Egypt is again in a very good position to continue that effort and to even enhance the effort and enlarge the effort, because nobody else, again, is in a position to do the same thing as Egypt. Imagine yourself a truck going through the borders to Gaza, driven by an Egyptian, guided by 2 other Egyptians or 3 other Egyptians, distributing the food or whatever by Egyptians, there will be no problem. There will be no problem.
Yes.
I am sure of this. And I was part of this at one time because of my job. I had to go to Gaza several times and had to deal with Hamas and with the Gazans, with the guns. There is a lot of this of trust and confidence between Egypt and the Gazans, and this is only natural. We are stating the obvious.
Yes.
We are stating the obvious.
For the reconstruction plan for Gaza, how do you see the role of Egypt, not just like that, because we will be hosting the conference hopefully soon for the benefit of the Palestinians, and in the past week we have seen the statements by the US President Donald Trump saying that a lot of wealthy leaders were there in Sharm el-Sheikh, and to be donating and to be supporting the reconstruction efforts for Gaza. How do you see the pillars? What are the main pillars of the reconstruction plan for Gaza and the phases that it will be implementing in?
The problem is that when it comes to Gaza, or when it comes to the Palestinian question, the United States and the other Western power look for supporters and donators, especially the Arab states in the Gulf and the other Arab states. But when it comes to Europe, for example, and Ukraine, to be precise,
yes,
they talk about who is going to do this, who is going to do reparations, pay reparations, who is going to do this and this and that, and you know, there have to be reparations. Why don't we speak about the role, the main role played by Israel in destroying Gaza? Don't the Israelis and the Americans and all those who supplied weapons to the Israeli army to destroy Gaza and kill Gazans, women, old people and children, are they not obliged to pay something, to do something, even to apologize?
It's not the first time.
Well, it's not the first time. Even more so.
Not the first aggression.
Even more so. It's a problem when it comes to Ukraine. There is an attitude. When it comes to Palestine or to Gaza specifically, there is a totally different attitude.
Do you think that the world is waking up, especially through social media?
It is waking up. Yes, it is waking up at the popular level. But the governments have not stepped in yet. Governments are trying to cope.
Can the people pressure the governments?
To a point. To a point. There are a lot of interests for the governments not to get involved. Look at Italy. It's a prime example of this. Italy had a very nice position when it came to the navy, the smooth navy, if you like.
Flotilla, yes.
A flotilla. And then, all of a sudden, they dodged out. They said that they would send warships to guard the flotilla, to guard the boats. And Spain did the same thing. But again, they had second thoughts. To the point that yesterday or the day before yesterday, Mr. Donald Trump warned Spain that it will be sacked of NATO and it will be considered as an enemy. There is an imbalance, as we said at the beginning of this talk. There is an imbalance in treating the situation in Gaza. We have to realize this. Of course we realize it. We have to acknowledge this, and we have to show that to the world. Again, the popular awareness that is being fermenting now in Europe and in the West may produce something, hopefully so.
On the popular level, things are getting better. Mr. Mostafa Abbas, the international relations expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
You are welcome.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow.